Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Well, a lot of craziness happening week over week with the latest one involving TQL and that 47% everyone is talking about. If you're unfamiliar, I'll attach a video down below that explains it from Mother Trucker. Now, I know that many of you would love to hear me bash TQL, but from what I have seen, this topic has been discussed endlessly, so I'm going to focus on where this pent-up anger is actually stemming from. And that's the issue with broker transparency. Ready? Let's go! So for those of you who are unfamiliar, the FMCSA regulates brokers as well. And according to one of the regulations, specifically 371.3, the FMCSA requires brokers to maintain records of every single transaction, meaning that when you book a load with a particular broker, that broker has to retain a ton of documents, including what the shipper paid and what they are paying you. The issue that carriers are having is that in that regulation, specifically Part C, and I quote, each party to a brokered transaction has the right to review the record of the transaction required to be kept by these rules. Translation, you as the carrier have the right by law to request documents showing what the broker actually earned from the shipper on that load that you just hauled. But regardless of the law, that is not what is happening at all. Actually, freight brokers have found a way to include language in their carrier packets, their broker carrier packets, that basically makes or forces carriers to waive the right to see that record. And what ends up happening is when you're trying to book a load with a new broker, you cannot actually haul that load without first signing that contract between yourself as a carrier and the broker. And that carrier packet, again, waives your right to view those records. Now, I did a ton of digging to see which brokers actually include such language in their carrier packets or used to include it. And of course, one of them is TQL, hence this whole mess that is happening. Then there was BMAC, Echo, Global Trans, and Coyote. And I'm sure there are a bunch of other brokers who also include it in their contract. Of course, not all of them. I actually looked through my contracts and I was surprised. One of the biggest brokers out there, such as JB Hunt, there was Allen Lunt, they do not have such language in the contract, which surprised me. Now, there is also, for a lack of a better word, an unspoken rule within the trucking industry. Carriers are acutely aware of the fact that even if a broker does not have anything in their contract saying that you as a carrier waive your right to see those records, if a carrier asks that broker to see those records, that carrier is very likely to get blacklisted by that broker. Now, according to the OOIDA from a 2020 publication, and I quote, many drivers reluctantly sign contracts with brokers in which they waive their right to access this information simply because they have no other options in acquiring loads. This practice has become so widespread among brokers, it's practically an industry norm, rendering the requirement of 371.3, that rule, obsolete. Often, drivers who are able to acquire this information from brokers report being essentially blacklisted by specific firms. Now, I know we have a lot of brokers on this channel as well, and I read a ton of stuff, so I see you guys saying like, hey, we don't ask to see your variable and fixed costs as a carrier, so why would we show you what the shipper pays us? This is business. The whole argument that brokers have is that if their margins are to be capped, then the carrier's margins should also be capped when the market flips. Now, the next thing I'm going to say will probably have a lot of opinions, but the reality is I actually, in all honesty, couldn't care less what a broker does as long as I am earning what I need to earn in order to turn the profit that I need to turn. But, and there is a huge but, in a market like today, with carriers shutting their doors, with brokers, some brokers having the audacity to post loads for 90 cents per mile. I want to know just one thing. I want to know whether a broker is someone I should blame for the fact that trucking companies and drivers, those essential guys and gals who actually haul the freight and keep the economy moving, are shutting down. Do I blame brokers for that? Because if it's a scenario where brokers are lining their pockets in order to thrive, while essential players like drivers, carriers are not just fighting to survive but are going out of business, that is a catastrophe. And of course, all these waivers in the carrier contracts, the blacklisting, and the hysteria from the side of brokers when it comes to this record-keeping requirement makes us carriers feel like those brokers are hiding something, specifically some really nice margins. So to end this video, what is actually being done about this broker transparency issue? Now, I'm attaching down below a rulemaking report from the FMCSA, and the one thing you should pay attention to is page 27. And on that page, the FMCSA says that the rule making on the broker transparency will take place on October 31st of next year. What is the proposed change? Well, I quote, OOIDA requests that the FMCSA require property brokers to provide an electronic copy of each transaction record automatically within 48 hours after the contractual service has been completed, and prohibit explicitly brokers from including any provision in their contracts that requires a motor carrier to waive its rights to access the transaction records. Now, do I think that something is actually going to come out of this ruling? To be honest, I'm a little bit skeptical, and if you look on page 27 at the top, the priority is listed as non-significant. So that should tell you everything you need to know about how seriously FMCSA is actually taking this issue. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to check in, quickly chat about broker transparency because it's been all over the place in the past few days. And of course, I wanted to talk about what is actually being done about this issue. Anyway, wishing you all a fantastic rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next video.